G'day guys, welcome to episode 11 of Ask Woodford. Hopefully you enjoyed last week's. As I told you last week, I want to introduce some more staff, the people that make up Woodford. There's more to Woodford than Christian Woodford itself, so that's what we're trying to do. So we had Coach Brett Crenage on last week. Today we are very lucky to be joined by Jarrad K. Jarrad, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. So Jarrad's was lucky enough to coach a lot of boys last year. Scrib, Andy number 1, Taranto number 2, Cam and Corey. How'd you find that experience? Good. They've gone pretty well at the moment. A few of them should play a few games.
Yeah, well, for him debuted this year, which is good, and hopefully at the back end of the year we'll see Corey and Scrimmer get a chance. It'd be good to see them out in the field.
Yeah,
it was good. Most of the boys I got to work with since they were 15, 16, so it was great seeing their development over the years, which is now paying off good dividends for them.
Yeah, they're all good kids and you've done a good job with them. How do you find sharing out their junior development? Like, that's something that's pretty big in Australia that's not done very well at the moment.
Yeah.
How do you kind of find where we can get better at junior development in Australia?
Well, I look at it from when I played sport when I was a junior, between the ages of, let's say, 10 and 18, and there was nothing out there for juniors. It was just, you could go to your gym and throw around some weights, and it was the upper body beach style program, and it was
beach
just
weights,
running based. They just told you go out and run, get fit. And now we're actually starting to pay some attention to our juniors because we know that they're the future. And developing athletes at a young age is amazing for their long-term development.
Also, very important to develop them before they hit puberty, before they lose their coordination. So you want them to learn that pattern. Now, I think what you're saying, right, I was reading a book just before and it was talking about the importance of getting proper physical preparation at junior age, because it's very hard to do the poor work, the poor patterns they make when they're younger.
Yeah, definitely. And the kids these days, they're sponges. They take on anything. You show them a couple movements, you teach them how to use their body, and they just adapt. They take it all on, and hopefully it's information and skills that will stay with them throughout their athletic careers. And they can develop to be bigger, stronger, more powerful athletes, because you see that most field-based sports, and especially your other specific individual sports, are speed and power dominant.
Correct.
There's not too many sports out there that are still a fitness-based dominant sport.
No. You hit the nail on the head there. I think the
speed is king.
Yep.
Speed and strength.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there, where the kids are like a sponge. Their nervous system like putty. They'll pick it up real quick. So I think definitely, at a junior age, you want to lay the physical foundations for what? Future sporting success. Alex, with that being said, bit of a hit there, my old big six. Hit me, Alex. Jarrad, you can jump in anytime you want.
All right, first question from both of y'all. On sports, this is Garrick Morgan from Western Australia.
Did you say Garrick?
Garrick.
Western Australia, hopefully comes to the Perth workshop.
Garrick, this is a shout out to you, mate. I hope he's seeing both of us there. That's why we've got Jarrad on. So, Garrick, you better buy your tickets, son. Link below. Do you like that one, Alex? Yeah, go.
Good man.
Good man.
I'm a sports science student in Western Australia with just over a year of study to go, so I've decided to do a PT course in order to get into the industry and learn as much as I can while I finish my degree. But I seem to have trouble with convincing people that I know a lot more than a regular PT and that people will see my great results if they commit to training properly. I also have trouble with convincing people what they actually need to do in order to become fit and strong safely and effectively, as all PTs where I work use gimmicks in order to attain clients. Any suggestions of how I can help more people out with their fitness goals when they are almost second guessing if seeing me is the right move to make?
Well, I think, Jarrad, you should take this on, because I've been down the industry.
I'd say quickly that actions always speak louder than words. Show people what you're doing. Build a social media profile. Show that the results of what you're training is getting the results that your clients are after. They're getting the adaptations that they need, and stick to your guns. Don't worry about other people and what they're doing. Form your own knowledge. Go out and research your own stuff and design your own programs. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, go back to the drawing board and try again. We're very successful here because we all stick to the WSSC methods. That's our program base. That's our design. And look, we don't get caught up in all the gimmicks that are out there. You see a lot of social media presence where people are jumping on around all sorts of things, using all sorts of contraptions, and just the basics work. You're a big believer of that, Christian, the basics?
He's right. The fundamentals. I think what Jarrad's saying is right. You just got to don't care what other people is doing. You just got to kind of stick to the foundations, and results will speak for themselves. So if you kind of go out and you show that you care and you get results, people will come to you. You're only young in your career. I mean, did he say he's a first year student?
Yeah, 1 year ago. A big thing that I did when I was in a similar situation to you, Garrick, was I went out and I found the best athlete I could. And I said to him, look, and his name was Andy McGrath.
Oh.
I said, Andy, I'll train you
poor
for free.
Scream.
Oh, Scream as well.
Poor Scream.
Scream as well.
You just threw him under the bus there. You didn't Scream. I'd say Andy because just his athleticism was the mate. Remember when he first came in?
He was a national champion.
Well, mate, he was a freak, man. So actually, I'll give you that. But Scream, he'd get angry.
He's a natural born athlete as well.
Scream up.
Actually, he's chopping up the footy field.
Yeah.
But I contacted Andy out of the blue, and I said, look, Andy, I've seen the way you go about your football. I think you're going to be something special. I put him on a scholarship for 2 years where I trained him. It gave me great experience training a high-level athlete. And it gave him great experience in getting a high-performance program until he went into the professional league. And off him, people started seeing what I could do because people are going to look up to the better sportsmen that are around. So go out and find yourself a good athlete or go lodge yourself with a team and just do what you do. Put in the work.
I think the biggest thing that I would say for Garrick is regardless of how hard it is, what's happening on the outside. I understand you need to get paid. I understand that. You're still early in your career. There's no rush. Just take your time with it. The right people will come to you at the right time. And just you got to kind of, and I'm the worst at this, but you just got to kind of let things fall into place. I'm not saying don't be proactive. There's a difference. But sometimes you don't want to push it. You know, you're early on in your career, lay the foundation. If you don't want to be pushing it too hard where you're just like, they're not coming to me, I'm so upset, the right people will come the right time. And that's how I've always believed in my career. And if people want to train with you, they want to get the right results, they will. You don't want to beg people to train with you. But I think what Jarrad says is a good point. Go out and get yourself. A lot of the young kids don't do it, and I'll give Jarrad props to that, where he went out and he said, listen, I'll train you as a scholarship athlete, and that gives you the chance to work with an athlete that is coming through, that is a high-level athlete, and allows you to develop your skill set as a performance coach without the real pressure on you. And I think that's a really good example.
And you know that in these scenarios as well, there's going to be consistency. Programs are only as good as people's consistency and adherence to the program itself.
Did you hear that? That's brilliant. That's actually quite good. He's right. Yeah, you're right about that. That's actually, on the head, because
it's a frustrating part of our industry. You work hard with a client. They've got goals and they're in for 4 weeks.
Don't actually. I'm just on the phone about this one. Actually, this is funny you bring this up. Yeah. That's actually funny you bring this up, because I was at a fight with my old man about this. Mate, I've got clients. There's nothing worse. I know you hate as well, but sure, we all hate as coaches. Is where you get an athlete in I work my arse off with an athlete for 6 weeks, a 6-week consistent full adherence training block, and they have 2 weeks off. Yeah. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why would you waste my time? And that's actually a very good point, because your program is only as good as it's adhered to by the athlete and how consistent that athlete is. I think we're going to leave that question, because that is a good end to it. Very good answer. You might come on the show again one more time. Very good. Brett, you're up next week. All right, let's go. Alex, next question.
Cooper Robbins. Now, this one's...
Coop.
This one is...
Coop, go.
He's a junior athletic.
I know he is, yep.
For Jarrad, how many times per week should you perform a speed agility session for a junior athlete?
Jarrad, go.
Also, can you just incorporate speed and agility work before a conditioning session while you are nearly replenished?
Just before we start this, Cooper, I know you're a big fan of what we do here. You're a good kid, and you message us all the time. So, Jarrad, answer this question 100%. Go. It's for you, Coop. Go.
Cooper, thanks for the question. So with junior athletes, I like to find that you can do a multitude of training designs in the one session. So what I always hit on is skill and technique work always at the start of the session, whether that skill be jumping, whether it be running, whether it be change of direction, whether it be developing acceleration, teaching them deceleration. I'm always trying to hone in on a skill and keep the athlete developing over time. So we're not just focusing on one thing all the time. So speed and agility can be done at the start of any session, I feel. In terms of your conditioning at the end of the session, it depends on how well you want the athlete to adapt to what they're doing. You can't throw everything at them and expect them to get really good at everything. You've got to try and space things out a little better. So if you're going to do a speed session, I think it would be better to teach them how to use their body and start doing some bodyweight exercises, or if they already know how to squat and trap bar deadlift and RDL, perform these big movements, this big six that Christian has established and spoken about so much, and go from there. In terms of conditioning, I feel that you're going to get a lot of your conditioning from your team trainings. And one thing junior athletes do is they do a lot of team trainings. Like most kids who play football or soccer or basketball, they're training 2 to 3 to 4 times a week. You're going to get fit from doing that. And if you're not fit enough from your pre-season, then, well, you've got to look back at what you were doing in your pre-season and adjust from there.
I think the one that Jarrad brought up was your speed and agility work will always be done at the start when the athlete's fresh. I really like how you said at the start how important for the junior athlete, and also let's bring back to the first thing I was talking about, how they pick it up like a sponge.
Yeah.
You know, you said at the start, I haven't worked with many junior athletes, so I couldn't really understand this, but now you said at the start when they're fresh and you do all the technique work at the start.
Yeah.
And then you said, look, you can throw a lot more at them because they're not really that neurally advanced. So really, you don't have to really... It's not like you're training a Shandor where he's real high and you'll be very careful about neural fatigue. A lot of those kids, and I've seen you train, they pick it up quite quickly.
Yeah. They recover really well.
Oh, God, yeah, they would. They pick it up real quickly. But I guess I think what Jarrad said, he kind of hit the nail on the head with all those. Your speed and agility work done at the start. And I think you should emphasise... One thing for Cooper is the quality of the session is more important than the quantity. Most of these kids will just do 1,000 reps. Is there anything you want to explain about speed and agility for quality instead of quantity?
When we're looking at speed training, I use work to rest ratios is big.
So let's talk about that.
You have to hit on your work to rest ratios for all speed and all agility stuff.
Yep.
It is time dependent on the session, but if you want to get quality in, which is always the most important thing, I tend to use a 1:5 to 1:6. There are higher ratios out there. It depends on the intensity and the total volume of the work you're going to do in your speed work. Let's say I do 2 sessions a week with a junior athlete. On session 1 at the start, I'll work on jumping and landing. And session 2 at the start, I'll work on some acceleration. I'd spend maybe 15 minutes based around this. And they'll perform up to... I always keep my jumping and landing low. 3 to 4 sets, 4 to 6 reps. Because it's always quality, not quantity. Anything over 6, you start to see your quality drop off, and that's when injuries can arise or poor technique and bad habits start to form. With my speed stuff, I'm always using a 1:5, a 1:6, and my speed work is never over 10 to 15 seconds because after that the energy systems are going to start to deplete and quality again will start to diminish.
So I think the biggest point that we want to take away from that for Cooper, what was his question again? We kind of just went on about speed and agility. What was his big question? What was his question? So we can kind of tie it all together.
How many times per week should you perform a speed agility session for a junior athlete?
Look, I think the general rule of thumb, Jarrad, is it really depends.
2 to 4.
I would say anyway. Well, I was going to say 2 to 3, but it really depends. But I think we tie that together.
Yeah. Put it this way. Do a skill at the start of each of your session, whether it's balance and stability, whether it's acceleration, deceleration, whether it's jumping and landing. Always start with a skill. It's going to stimulate you for your session and it's going to evolve the athlete as they go along. You
know what I would say though, Alex and Jarrad, is how I would do it personally if I was a junior football coach is because they're junior athletes, you're going to get that high intensity stuff. Do it in the warm-up. So do your jumping, landing, acceleration, deceleration, change direction. Do it in the warm-up because you're ticking those boxes. Yeah. How many coaches would actually do that other than your 2 laps to stay stretching? But that's how I do it. I would educate them. Do it in the warm-up. It's not going to waste any more time because the biggest thing I talk about coaches, we don't have enough time. Well, that's bullshit. Yeah. Do it in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes where you can hit your neural prep, your neuromuscular prep, you hit your jumps, your lands, your sprints, and you don't have to, you might do session 1 might be it might be jumps and landing. Session 2 might be sprints and change of direction. I don't know, but I'm just trying to give you an idea how you can do it. Just do it the warm-up. Takes 15 to 20 minutes maximum, and then you're ready for the session.
And for all coaches out there, I can understand the need to send kids off on laps because you may need time to set up your next drill. But let's shy away from the go for a 1 lap, go for a 2 lap. It's not going to do anything for the athlete. Give them a challenge. Give them a balance challenge, a stability challenge. Get them doing some mobility work while you set up. Let's get away from the running laps continuously during training.
And I want you guys to realise, if you are a coach out there, especially while the athlete is a junior athlete, completing more endurance-based work is not going to make them a better athlete. We know that. We've seen that in research. But what would make them a better athlete is completing exactly what Jarrad said, some sort of balance, some sort of neuromuscular mobility work. That's important at a young age. So developing the neuromuscular system compared to the cardiovascular system, which they will get enough from training and competition. Next question. Alex.
Jarrad, how much do you know about powerlifting? There's a powerlifting question here. I don't know if you guys want to answer it.
Yeah, I'll answer it,
Yeah,
give it a shot.
know a fair bit about it.
Leroy... Wow. Barahut.
Don't say that you don't know.
Sorry,
it, mate.
Leroy. My bad. Okay.
Hey, Leroy.
For developing strength and power specific to powerlifters' needs, what is the most reliable and proven training scheme, or what is the weight training program you think best suits a powerlifter?
Oh, well, mate, that's a very specific question.
More ways than one to skin a cat.
cat.
There's so many different methods you can use for powerlifting. It depends how your training age. If you're relatively new to the sport, if you've been doing it for 5-10 years, really you just got to find what's working for you and what's the goal of a powerlifter, continually adding weight to their total. So if your program isn't working for you, then I would recommend you start looking at a different program design. Is there more specifics to this question?
You have to just
Instead of reading it out loud, that was the first message he said.
I just think the biggest thing that I would say to him is, number one, powerlifting is a sport. I always say this to my athletes. Powerlifter athletes are not powerlifters, right? So for a powerlifter, their main goal is to lift the most amount of weight possible for one rep. So your whole goal is to get the weight up. Number one, you want to minimize your range of motion. Number two, you want a mechanical advantage. So I'm not really a coach for that. So
it says here that you're growing bigger rather than stronger. That's possibly because you're not training in the right intensity. Maybe you're training if volume's too high instead of your load and your intensity. So I just look at altering it where you're not trying to put on muscle, you're trying to put on absolute strength, relative strength to your body mass. You don't want to keep getting bigger, because you keep getting bigger, your relative strength's going to go down.
And always remember, adaptation is load and movement specific. So how you train affects how you adapt. So how are you training? Are you focusing on the big three, squat, dead, bench, which is your sport? Are you doing supplementary movements to maximize the big three? Once again, I'm not a powerlifting coach, either is Jarrad, so it's a very wide open question.
But it's like any sport, if you want to get better at it, you've got to do more of it. So I'd suggest benching more, squatting more, deadlifting more.
Yep, really that's it.
All right. Tibin Thampi. Any tips for an aspiring sports scientist and exercise physiologist currently in year 12?
Yo, Tibin.
Year 12.
Yo, Tibin.
So young.
Jarrad, you can answer this because you...
Definitely get out there and start training. Hire a coach to train under, whether it be in a group class or a one-on-one environment, so you start getting a understanding of how coaches train, and just ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can. Get the coach to justify why they're doing what they're doing, the order of selection of exercises they use, the rest periods they use, and then just start researching. The internet's great. There's so much information out there. You got to be careful what you do read though, because there's also a lot of crap out there. But following a page like Woodford Sports Science, we pour out tons of information about training and exercises and how to perform movements correctly and where to start and how to progress along. So following us will give you a good understanding, and just look at where you want to go to uni. So exercise sports science is in Victoria, does it say?
Yeah, I was going to say he's in Victoria or what?
I don't know.
The old Tibin.
And I'd also, it depends what you want to do specifically as well. Sports science is very broad. So we go into athlete performance, strength and conditioning. Sports science, like you said, you can go into exercise physiology, where that's more working with people with conditions. You can go into, a lot of people use it as a stepping stone to get into physio and osteo. Some people go down the actual sports science side of things, and GPS monitoring. So I'd suggest at a young age, get as much experience in each different field as you can, and then make a decision from there. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do at 18. Did you, Christian?
Yes.
You
I
did?
know what I wanted to do since I was about 14.
Well,
And that's own a gym and just train athletes.
Is that really since you were 14?
Yeah, since 14. Gosh, old man. Yeah, 14, I know what I want to do. When you've got a dream, I think Jarrad, what Jarrad's saying is right. You want to hit all different areas, get as much experience as possible, follow educated people, not people who have big followings. If you've got a big following and they know what they're doing, no issue. But most of the time they've got a big following. Most of the time they're like, I don't know what they're doing. So always, my general rule of thumb is experience as much as possible. Like as we talked about, you're a sponge. Soak up as much information as possible. Follow people who are educated, applied, and can get results. They have proven results. Whatever area you want to go. Exactly what Jarrad said. Physiology, sports science, physical preparation for athletes. Follow that area. The last one, and it's the biggest one, and I've lived my life on it. Be passionate and just really love what you do, because I think there's a massive correlation. If you're passionate about what you do, you're going to get results. I think all the guys here, if you that are passionate, we all get results.
And train, just keep training.
And that's a big one which a lot of them don't do. You've got to train, and that doesn't mean you're going to be, you have to be the best lifter or the best sprinter or the best, most conditioned, but at least go in there and give it a shot.
Being able to do chin-ups with 40 kilos.
You didn't do them, Jarrad. You couldn't get your chin over. But at least, we have a bit of fun here. We have a bit of competition where Jarrad couldn't get 40 kilo chin-ups, today couldn't get his chin over. That's fine, yeah. But at least, my thing about that is we create a culture of competitiveness, but also we train together as much as possible. So I think, as Jarrad said, training's a big one. You need to know what works, what doesn't work in the real world. But also at uni, you get that fundamental sports science theory, then you apply it to see what works. And that is a big one. Training is a big one. What was his name again?
Tibin.
That's the answers for you, Tibin.
All right, more.
One more. Hit us with one more.
Small. Okay. If someone comes to you to lose weight, how many sessions per week would you suggest?
Yes.
And he knows about all the progressive overloads, not only within sessions, but actually increasing sessions per week too.
Yep.
But what would you suggest to someone wanting to lose, say, 15 kilos in 3 months? I get a lot of people with unrealistic goals like this, not knowing the work required, not only during sessions, but afterward, and the nutrition side to it. What would you say?
I will say one thing before I start this. Nutrition is everything. It is half the battle. Abs are made in the kitchen. If they're eating shit, you can't out-eat a poor... you can't... What's the word? You can't out-train a poor diet, and that is so true. I'll be honest with you, I'm not trained someone for fat loss, muscle gain. I haven't done that body comp thing for at least, since I started Woodford, actually, even before that, probably 7 years. So, Jarrad, do you have anyone for that? I've got no idea.
It's more about achieving, like you said in the thing, clients with unrealistic goals. It's resetting their mindset. So, you see, and this is where we have social media to blame and TV shows and celebrity diets where people are losing 20, 30 kilos in 1 to 2 to 3 months, but it's unrealistic and it's not sustainable. You're going to see that post these shows or these fab diets, bang, rebound, just comes back on, they rebound. You want to set a goal, let's say if it's 1 or 2 kilos per week, and then chip away at it.
Yep.
And like he knows about progressive overload. It's the same with weight loss. Weight loss is just about continual overload. We want to keep overloading the body, keep the body adapting to shedding off fat. But also, if you're in a training environment, you've got to understand that you're going to be losing fat and adding muscle, and muscle weighs more than the fat. So sometimes your weight loss isn't going to reflect your training.
Yes, correct. I thought you said that quite well there, Jarrad. I thought you've been quite well today. I will say, Jarrad hit the nail on it with all that stuff. That's perfect what he said. Throw out the scales. Because the perfect example is this one, and I used to get this all the time where they would go on the scales and the scales say a combination of fat and muscle loss. Now, what you said before is we want to maintain muscle. We want to increase muscle. Why? Because we know lean body mass is correlated with your basal metabolic rate. And basal metabolic rate is so important because the more muscle we have on our body, the more calories we're going to expend at rest, the less fat we're going to have on our body. So we want muscle on our frame. So all these people want to lose weight real quickly. You're losing a combination of muscle and fat. Yeah, you might be losing some fat, but you're losing muscle. So throughout the scales, go by what you look like. If not, get a bod pod or a DEXA, because that's going to actually show you percentages of muscle gain, fat loss, bone density, etc., etc. I think that's a big one because a lot of people get stuck on this whole, especially women, scale mentality. And the big one you talked about, which I like, the psychology behind it.
And with the psychological factors behind it, fat loss is a game where you've got a goal in mind, but also you've got to talk about the positives that's going to happen. Yep. Greater quality of life, greater movement. They're going to start becoming stronger, feeling better about themselves. These are the things you direct your attention and the client's attention to. Not about, they only lost 500 grams in the last week. You're lifting 1 kilo, 2 kilos, 3 kilos more than you were last week. You're moving better. You're feeling better day to day. So that's the things you got to start putting into their head positive thoughts and get away from the psychological mind about the fat loss.
And I think another thing about fat loss is as well, for an athlete, you want efficiency. For someone who's losing body fat, you want inefficiency. So that's where you can, if I was to ever do it, I'd vary the conditioning a fair bit to give them a different motor pattern to adapt to, so they're less efficient, so they're expending more calories. Because when the athlete first completes a motor pattern they're not used to, they're going to leak energy because they're not efficient. So it's always important to understand that as well. But I think the biggest one that I would say would just be nutrition. Is the biggest, man, and that's been for anyone, man. Nutrition is the biggest one. So I think if that answers your question, ties up in a little bow. The most important thing to understand is, well, losing 5 kilos a week is not realistic. I would aim for probably 0.5 to a kilo a week. But once again, it's an open-ended question, because what is your training status? How much weight? Because if someone's come to you and they're 40 kilos overweight, obviously they're going to lose a lot of weight quicker than someone who's only 10 kilos overweight. You start to see what I'm saying, because they're not used to that stress. You break their homeostasis, which is a controlling internal environment. You break that homeostasis, the body has to adapt. What happens? It loses body fat, and the body adapts.
I've found another good way to go about it. It's meal tracking, not necessarily meal planning. Because meal planning, there's not much variance to it. It becomes boring, but just tracking how much they are actually eating. So energy out and energy in. MyFitnessPal is a great app to use, and it's easy to use for anyone. So you can actually see and go over with them what they're eating per week, and start giving them healthier options or better advice on how much they should be eating.
Beautiful. Well, guys,
I got one question.
Oh, go.
You can answer it in 1 minute.
1 minute.
If you need. If there's one thing you could, if there's a message you could get to all junior athletes across the country, there's one thing you would get them to do to improve their athletic performance, what would that be?
So one thing I'd suggest for all junior athletes is just get involved in a high performance program, or get a coach that actually knows what they're doing, because the way they're going to be able to set you up, and you might not see the benefits straight away, which I think if you haven't done anything before, you will see the benefits straight away. But long-term athlete development, I'm 25 now, and I had nothing like this when I was younger. I've had 2 ACL reconstructions already, and this is why I got into this industry, so that when kids are 20, 30, 40 years old, they're still healthy, they're still playing their sport, and their bodies aren't broken. You look at AFL players that I grew up idolising, I've seen some of them now at ages 40 to 50, some of them can't even move. They're just, their bodies are that beaten. I know it's very different playing such a high level, but if you treat your body right now, and the vital ages, we got 10-year-olds in here, and I think that's vital. From 10 to 18, it's going to set you up for future when you're 30 plus.
If you are watching this and you are a parent or you're a junior athlete, my advice is simple. Okay, my suggestion is get down here as soon as possible and learn the fundamentals of athletic development. Plain and simple, we are one of the only companies, not saying the only, but one of the only ones who really do junior athlete development properly in Australia. Jarrad's leading the cause here, and I think we really need to make it really well known to. I think the biggest thing that we talk to, Jarrad, I don't know how you feel about this, is the parents, because the parents are going to fork out the money for it, and I think they need to start to understand how important it is to get proper development at a young age. Think about it this way, right? When they go to sport, right, they get taught the fundamentals of their sport, football, cricket, rugby, soccer, whatever sport it is, right? How many times do they get taught to jump, land, accelerate, decelerate, change, these basic fundamental motor skills?
It just doesn't happen.
It never happens, right? But how many times do they do it during a game? Lots. Exactly. So
change the direction.
Correct. Yeah. So we want to change the game in junior athletic development. So if you're a junior athlete, a parent of a junior athlete, we want to hear from you. Please comment below, and we will PM you with this special offer that we have at the moment for your junior athletes. We want to see more junior athletes down at Woodford, and we are really trying to push and create the change, and thanks to Jarrad here, in Australia in junior development. Well, guys, that was episode 11 of Ask Woodford. I want to thank very much my special guest, Jarrad K. Thank you for coming on, Jarrad. You did real well. Very, very impressive. Very articulate as well. I want to thank, as always, my producer, Alex Sandelas. And I want to thank you guys for watching Ask Woodford, because without you, this would never happen. Until next week, thank you and keep watching.